Please welcome the Managing Director of Financial Services at AWS, Scott Mullins.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 2024 Innovation Talk for the financial services industry here at AWS reInvent. For those of you who don't know me, as you just heard, I'm Scott Mullins, and it's my privilege to lead the financial services business at AWS. We're delighted that you decided to join us at reInvent this year and for this session, which is going to feature three amazing AWS customers, rocket companies, Fiserv, and Santander, who are pushing the envelope to take their businesses and the industry to new heights. A few months ago, I was fortunate enough to celebrate my 10th anniversary at AWS. And in that time, we've had the privilege of helping financial institutions, from the newest fintech companies to the largest systemically important institutions, leverage the tools and capabilities that AWS builds to help them build and grow their businesses in ways that continue to transform our industry. In that time, we've seen reInvent become a launch pad for showcasing first, small steps forward, and then leaps and bounds in innovation in financial technology. And as I reflect on the last decade, it's awesome to see the direct impact that the financial services industry has had on the roadmaps for the services, features, and functionality that we create, and humbling to see the impact that the launch of these capabilities has had in helping to propel the industry forward, past old boundaries and into new frontiers. For instance, at reInvent 2015, Rob Alexander, the CIO at Capital One, joined the keynote to share how the bank was going all in on AWS, which at the time represented a groundbreaking and pioneering approach, as they were the first large bank to do so. Rob talked about combining AWS's infrastructure and services with Capital One's technology and product leadership to develop an intuitive, personalized experience for customers that made managing their financial lives much, much easier, and that set a new standard for the industry when it comes to engaging with financial consumers. And financial services customers have been raising standards on the reInvent stage ever since, with organizations like JPMorgan Chase, FINRA, Guardian, Vanguard, Goldman Sachs, National Australia Bank, and many, many others joining us to share how they are partnering with AWS to reinvent themselves and the industry. They've shared powerful stories of how they've used services like AWS Key Management Service, Amazon SageMaker, and Amazon Connect to move critical applications quickly and confidently to AWS while also building new applications to better serve their financial consumers. A common theme of these stories is how we work with our customers to shape AWS capabilities to meet the unique needs of the financial services industry across banking, payments, insurance, and the capital markets. And you heard Matt mention this in his keynote yesterday. In 2021, Adena Friedman, the chair and CEO of NASDAQ, shared how AWS was working with NASDAQ to bring its first U.S. options market to the cloud, which signaled a new way of running ultra-low latency trading applications on AWS, demolishing the myth that certain applications just weren't suitable for cloud infrastructure. To do this, NASDAQ and AWS collaborated to create ultra-low latency edge computing systems using AWS Outpost designed specifically for the demanding performance specifications for NASDAQ and the global capital markets. NASDAQ undertook this ambitious initiative to improve the resiliency and performance of its own markets and also to deploy cloud-based trading and clearing solutions for its global client base of financial market operators. And if you look beyond the stories shared during this week each and every year, you'll come across examples of financial institutions in every geography and every market segment every single day doing things with AWS that just aren't possible with legacy infrastructure and legacy ways of working or commodity cloud. And they're setting new limits for the industry in the process. And the thing is, in our industry, the limits are constantly shifting. NASDAQ's story exemplifies pushing the envelope to better serve its customers, the industry, and the global economy by making it easier for companies to raise capital. Running complex trading systems in the cloud like NASDAQ does today with 3 of its markets was once thought to be a threshold that wouldn't be possible to cross. But today, this workload is commonplace on AWS, with companies like Fidelity, Vanguard, and Coinbase joining NASDAQ and pushing beyond traditional limits to move trading to the cloud and to move the industry forward. Similarly, instant payments used to be an aspiration, but organizations like Itaú Unibanco, Axis Bank, and the U.S. Federal Reserve Bank have made it the norm. Digital channels were always kind of just around the corner in our industry until companies like Principal Financial, Sun Life, and Liberty Mutual made them the industry standard. And personalized banking at scale was really just a vision until companies like Capital One, NatWest Group, and Nubank, and JP Morgan Chase made it the new ordinary. And the story doesn't end there, because our customers refuse to rest on their laurels. Today, we're going to learn how the industry continues to push against the limits of conventional thinking and legacy technology. And we'll discuss how leading financial institutions are working with AWS to break barriers by making the essential services that power our industry more efficient and more valuable to consumers. To blaze new trails by building solutions to tomorrow's problems and not just today's. And last, pushing beyond by seizing new opportunities and entering untapped markets. Today, we'll be joined by 4 pioneers. We're going to share how they are pushing the envelope to innovate on behalf of their customers. And I want to stress that word how in what I just said. They're not going to just share what they did or why they did it, but how they've done it and in partnership with AWS. Shimon Holzer from Rocket Companies is going to share how Rocket has not only enhanced the customer experience, but fundamentally transformed one of our industry's most established services, mortgage lending. Brandy Wood and Sri Muthrishkrishnan from Fiserv will share how Fiserv anticipated the needs of its customers by developing a new business intelligence product that provides granular insights that they could not otherwise access. And then finally, Joanne Chadwick from Santander US will share how Santander recently launched its digital bank, Open Bank, here in the United States to expand its offering and presence here. These 3 stories are an awesome representation of how financial institutions are partnering with AWS to push the envelope on what's possible in the industry and completely reimagining how the industry serves businesses and financial consumers like you and like me. This is where our focus is going to be today, on how these 3 organizations and many, many more across the industry are breaking traditional barriers, they're blazing new trails, and pushing beyond what conventional wisdom has previously thought was possible. So I want to start by talking about how financial institutions are pushing against the boundaries of their own traditions and transforming their core services on which their businesses depend. To a financial consumer, on the surface, these services can seem essentially the same from institution to institution. A checking or a current account at one bank is probably on the surface very similar to one at another, while a trading account at one brokerage is likely, again, on the surface similar to one at another. Paying for something that you want to buy online or at a local shop, there are many different options for completing this transaction, and it's also never been easier or faster to purchase auto insurance than it is today. In the world we live in, consumers, and especially financial consumers, have more choice than ever before. When's the last time you wrote a check? And to stay competitive, financial institutions must differentiate their products and services. Many organizations often start by transforming the customer experience, making it faster and frictionless across multiple channels. Increasingly, financial institutions are also changing the way they support and engage with customers by turning contact centers into relationship channels and applying generative AI to make customer service more efficient and targeted with Amazon Connect. And we've seen many of our financial services customers begin to fundamentally rethink their services to make them more meaningful to their end clients. One example is Aviva. Aviva is a 327-year-old insurer in the UK that dared to reinvent an established service that many of us see as a commodity until we really need it, and that's auto insurance. So how did Aviva go about turning a commodity product into a differentiator? By helping customers think about it in a completely different way. Aviva Zero is a carbon-conscious insurance product that went from idea to launch in only 6 months. The product offsets the first 1,000 miles of driving and then gives policyholders the option for more. The Aviva Zero team leaned on AWS serverless and machine learning technologies, including Amazon SageMaker and AWS Fargate, to run the product's real-time pricing and risk management engine. And as of this September, Aviva Zero has sold more than 1 million motor insurance policies, which makes it one of the fastest growing motor insurance brands in the UK. And Aviva has already offset 1.3 billion miles of car travel. The Aviva Zero story shows how a novel idea married with the right technology can help differentiate even the most familiar products. And then you have Klarna, who has used technology to rethink credit decisioning and make it better for consumers. Klarna is a leader in instant credit and buy now, pay later services. These services require lightning-fast and accurate decision-making to provide a frictionless customer experience while effectively managing credit risk and preventing financial crime. On Monday, Klarna shared during a breakout session how they scale credit decisioning in real time by using Amazon DynamoDB and AWS Glue to aggregate customer data points and condense them into features such as past orders, outstanding debt, and they use that to feed machine learning models using Amazon SageMaker, which then informs purchase approvals. Klarna's data pipelines enable the company to rapidly ingest, process, and analyze vast amounts of customer data to securely power instant yet informed credit decisions. These are decisions that used to take hours, but are now virtually instantaneous. So no matter how familiar a service is, there's always an opportunity to make it more operational and work better for customers. So now I'd like to welcome Sean Malhotra, the CTO of Rocket Companies, to the stage to share how Rocket is working with AWS to reinvent mortgage lending.
Thanks so much, Scott. So we're going to start with the good news. The American dream of homeownership is still alive and well. 92%, sorry, I went by a little faster, but 92% of people still want to own a home. This is the bad news. Only 19% of them actually think this is a good time to do so. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that, but one of them is the amount of friction that exists in the system. And there is a lot of friction. Where does that come from? There's a lot of parties involved. Anyone here who has had to get a mortgage knows that there's many parties involved, 6+ on average. There's a lot of documents being exchanged, 25+ different documents going back and forth. This is why it takes a long time. On average, the industry takes 43 days to close a loan. Remember, this is one of the most consequential, important financial transactions of most people's lives. So every one of those days is a day of stress. Right? So every day is consequential. And there's cost. Right? You have all this friction, you have all these people involved, all these documents being exchanged. It adds up. Right? So all of this is friction that hurts that home buying process. In fact, one of the stats that we like to talk about is that 60% of Gen Z and millennial home buyers cry with tears of frustration during the process. That's not good. Right? So we can do better. So at Rocket, we think one of the ways we can do better is by really leaning into technology, really rethinking how a lot of this process works, really personalizing that mortgage journey with offerings that meet our clients where they are. You know, whether that's on their desktop, on their mobile, by email, by text, by chat, people need to communicate in different ways, and they need to do it at different points in that process. We really got to meet them where they are. One great example of how we work together with AWS to get one of those great new mediums of interacting with our clients is our new chat feature. Now, a lot of times we think about AI as automating processes, and that's true. You get a lot of productivity, a lot of benefit from that. But what we found with this chat feature is, yes, there's automation. There's a lot of value for the client there, but they actually prefer this. 80% of our clients tell us that they prefer this to a phone call. And they're 3 times more likely to close a loan with us when they come to us through chat. So this is not just automating what we used to have. This is actually creating a new experience that's serving them better. Now, under the hood, this simple chat feature is actually an agent-powered network. Right? And so what you've got is you've got your supervisor agent at the top who's listening to the client via chat and trying to interpret what do they need me to do. And then it's farming off tasks and different things to other agents. Some that can work on things like translation, things that can do with document ingestion, all kinds of different tasks. What's beautiful about this is we can extend this over time. As we find new tasks that the AI is capable of doing, we can add new agents to the network. The supervisor agent will then delegate those tasks back, and we can automate even more. Right? Every one of these agents that we add is removing more and more friction from the system. And you can see we're leveraging things like knowledge bases, right? Makes it really easy for us to build things like retrieval augmented generation solutions for our clients. So every one of these building blocks is helping us get to this solution way faster than if we would have had to build them ourselves. Now, in that whole spectrum of build, buy, and partner, we're always very intentional about where do we want to focus on building and where do we want to partner. we focus on building on the things that we aspire to be best in the world at. So we have Rocket Logic, which is our AI-patented loan origination system. That's where we invest a lot of our time and effort and can leverage our AI capabilities off of. For the rest of it, where we can, we want to partner with the world's best organizations like AWS. And one other example of something we've built off of this platform is something that we call Rocket Logic Assistant. Now, if you think about what a banker at Rocket has to do, they're on the phone with someone, they're trying to talk to them about their home ownership needs, trying to really understand this consequential transaction that you're hopefully going to undertake. What's the best way to make this happen for you? What kind of mortgage product do you need? What kind of home are you trying to get? How do I help you achieve your home ownership dream? The problem is they've also got to take down a bunch of information. Right? They want to start that application process. So they've got to write down a whole bunch of stuff, your address, your income, all kinds of things. That's distracting. So what we do now is in real time, we're transcribing that call. We get 300,000 of these transcripts being transcribed every week. And during that transcription, we're pulling out the data automatically. Right? What does this do? Well, yes, it saves time. But once again, it allows the banker to really listen to, understand, and serve our client more effectively. So you're getting both time savings, but you're also getting a much better experience for the person on the other end of that call. There's other examples where we're leveraging AI to drive efficiency. We talked about documents before. We receive a lot of documents, 62 million documents a year related to these kinds of applications. We can now classify 65% of those automatically with no human in the loop. So that's things like saying, hey, was this a W-2? Was this a different kind of form? We can do that automatically. Would have had to be done by a human before, saves you time. And when we classify those documents, we can also extract data from them. So 80% of the data points that we need within those documents are also getting automatically extracted. Add all of that up with a bunch of other automation we're driving, and right now, we believe we're saving 800,000 team member hours every year. So every one of those hours can be redeployed on serving our clients, because most of these tasks are not the reason that people went into this business. They went in to help people really serve our mission, which is help everyone home. So that's a big savings, and that number's going up. We had this slide just a few months ago. It was 700,000. Now it's 800,000. We're going to continue driving this forward. Another great example is we talked about retrieval-augmented generation. I think many of us have tasks where you have mounds of information, and you need a professional to sift through that information and answer a client's question as quickly as possible. Pathfinder is an example of where we do this for those who are calling in, trying to ask questions about things like potentially like escrow, for instance, if your mortgage is being serviced. I'm still struggling to figure out what escrow is, having been only 7 months into the job. But when clients call in, what we're finding is by leveraging this kind of technology, we're able to reduce the time to resolve the request by 68%. Again, everything we do matters because of the consequence and the gravity of the transaction. You're trying to get your mortgage paid. You're trying to make sure you don't have a problem with your payment. So that time savings is really, really impactful to the client. One of the other things we've been really focused on is this notion that generative AI has really democratized innovation. And what I mean by that is, if you're a team member at Rocket, you may not know what things like retrieval-augmented generation are. You may have heard of LLMs, but you don't know what you can do with an LLM, what you can't do, how do I access them, which one's the right one for me to use. There's a lot of confusion there. But with this new technology, it's so powerful, you don't have to know those things. So we had our tech and product teams build a no-code environment that we call Rocket Navigator. And what it does is it allows all of our team members, not just the technologists or product people, to do things like experiment with all of the world's best LLMs, to do things like build their own custom retrieval-augmented generation systems without knowing they're doing it. And they can build their own custom apps on top of this. And we've seen a large uptake on this. July is when we released it. We're already at over 2,000 unique users who have accessed the system. I think we're at about 2,400. And they've generated 68,000 LLM interactions. And we've actually built 133 custom apps on top of this as well. So we're getting a lot of uptake. But what's exciting is it's not just the technology teams. Because in this wave of innovation, you've got to involve the entire company, because each person understands what it means to make their day more productive to better serve their client. It's hard for one team to try and go and canvas and get all those ideas. But when you allow the people closest to the problem to actually innovate and drive solutions, that's powerful. Now, under the hood, Navigator is actually powered by Bedrock. Bedrock gives us a lot of great fundamental building blocks that give us the ability to, again, do this low-code, no-code environment where you can do things like RAG, where you can experiment with various LLMs, where you can use embeddings without having to know what embeddings are. You get the point. But by leveraging these building blocks and packaging them up, we're really democratizing innovation across Rocket, and that's going to up our pace of innovation. So go back to that 43 days we talked about. That's across the industry. And in mortgage, we tend to look at mortgages as either purchase, you're buying a home, need a mortgage, or refinance. You might be taking cash out, taking equity out of your home, or you might be locking into a new rate. If you look at those two, because they're very different transactions, you're still at 43 or 45 days across the industry. Two things that we're really proud of at Rocket by really leaning into technology and working with partners like AWS is we have made significant improvements over the last few years. You see a 27% improvement in purchase, 21% in refinance, and in both cases, we're significantly better than the industry averages, almost more than 2x better on the refinance side. And in fact, with refinance, 50% of those loans are closing in less than 15 days. So again, you think about the number of days of stress, it's a lot less stress enabled by this technology. If you put it all together, what really matters is what your customers think. As an industry, we're lagging below the excellent experience we want to give, but at Rocket, we're doing better. We have a 76 NPS, and every time we drive automation and remove friction, that number is going to go higher. And we're going to really execute on our mission of helping everyone home. Thank you.
$800,000 people hours saved and growing, and a net promoter score that's well above the industry average. Thank you, Sean, for sharing how Rocket Companies is using AWS to power Rocket Logic and to break through traditional barriers in the mortgage lending space. Reinventing established services not only requires the boldness to question tradition, it requires a deep understanding of customer needs. But customer needs and expectations are constantly changing, and meeting future needs requires the confidence to take risks and bet on your ability to think ahead of what your customers want today. When you couple that confidence with creativity and you have the right tools at your disposal, you can devise entirely new ways to serve your customers, which means helping them manage emerging risks, providing them with the ability to make more informed business decisions, or offering them the opportunity to grow in uncertain market conditions. Anticipating customers' needs and building solutions to future problems requires the ability to experiment, to test hypotheses, to fail fast and to iterate, all of which AWS is helping to make easier, more secure, and more cost-effective for financial institutions. Now, of course, experimentation also requires data. Data that is secure, integrated, well-governed, and ready for the application of advanced analytics and machine learning. The ability to rapidly spin up a sandbox environment, test ideas with real data, and run simulations before moving a solution to a production environment is critical to translating big ideas into services that your customers will eventually need. Last year, I was joined on stage by Sally Moore, the Executive Vice President and Chief Client Officer at S&P Global, who talked about how building in a cloud-native way is enabling S&P to think ahead on behalf of their clients and bringing new products to market faster. One of the strategic focus areas that Sally referenced last year is S&P's desire to bring transparency to private markets. Now, private markets don't always provide the same level of visibility and reporting that public companies do, but they've become increasingly interesting to investors. Providing credit and risk scoring for private companies is challenging for several reasons, particularly the volume and the diversity of data you need to acquire, curate, and process at speed and scale to develop a relevant and actionable view of a private company. To achieve this, S&P created a platform in AWS that allows it to process 100 terabytes of data daily and then apply fine-tuned foundation models to Amazon SageMaker. S&P deploys and scales these models on Amazon EKS, running up to 6 million inferences per week to generate reports that support informed investment decisions. You can actually learn more about this solution during a breakout session that S&P is hosting tomorrow. The global insurer AXA is another great example of an organization that is thinking big and thinking ahead on behalf of its clients, and then taking action to turn that vision into reality. AXA and AWS are working together to develop the AXA Digital Commercial Platform, which is a secure risk management platform that combines industry, business, and environmental data with geospatial analytics and generative AI technologies to help clients monitor their assets and navigate complex and interconnected risks. These risks can include natural disasters, supply chain disruptions, and cyber threats. To deliver the digital commercial platform, AXA is using Amazon Bedrock to provide its customers with real-time data and analytics, including historical data sets to identify and assess factors that can disrupt operations or impact reputation, safety, security, or financial performance, things that are all important to financial institutions. These insights provide decision makers with actionable insights, helping ensure the safety of communities. They'll also help AXA's underwriting and claims experts better predict outcomes and mitigate risk when developing insurance products. Now, I'd like to welcome Brandy Wood, Head of Client Experience Products, and Sri Muthukrishnan, Senior Vice President of Engineering from Fiserv, to the stage to share how they align product and engineering teams to build a new business intelligence product for their customers, which includes some of the world's biggest brands.
Fiserv is a fintech company we're celebrating our 40th anniversary this year. So one of the things that is very important for us on this journey is being maniacally focused on our clients, what they need, what their customers need, and how do we empower them to reach those goals. We run 3 main business segments in issuing solutions around card and virtual plastics, a merchant solutions business around payment processing for SMB merchants all the way up through enterprise clients, and a banking solutions business that covers banking cores for many financial institutions across the country. We're going to focus today on our merchant solutions business, specifically our Carat brand. Carat is our go-to-market brand for the products and solutions that we bring to market as an operating solution for our enterprise clients across the globe. What that looks like, all of these items are data points, and that data generates large amounts of information within our ecosystem. We're looking at how do we bring all of that data and information together and provide it back to our clients in a way that's meaningful and makes sense. The size and scale of this data is very large. We process around 90 billion transactions every year in the US alone, not including our global business, and around 25,000 peak transactions per second. What we've looked at is how do we engage in a journey to radically simplify the interfaces that our clients use to access information around their businesses and solutions. And that really kicked off with a project focused on one of our core products and solutions around providing data. Previously, we referred to it as Client Line Enterprise. We engaged on a journey to talk to our clients about what their needs really were, how we were meeting them, where we could provide additional products and solutions to really drive them forward in the market. And that resulted in a UI/UX redesign that we call Control Center. It's focused on multiple things. What we heard from clients coming out of those sessions were global consistency. Our clients cover many regions. They want the same interface, the same data and information across all of those. How do we provide market-leading insights, tools and information for them to make business decisions? We have 300,000 users of this application. They cover a wide variety from technical users, business users, payments managers, fraud and risk managers. How do we meet their problems and solutions and provide data and information for them to power the business forward, whether that's revenue goals or expense reduction? And then how do we provide products and solutions with all of that data real time in a way that they can take meaningful action on it? Not just providing that data back to them in a way that they can understand their business, but how can they actually action it for the business goals that they're trying to meet? So I have the really easy part of the job. I get to talk to our clients and understand what they want. Sri has the more difficult job. I'm going to have him come out. He's going to talk about technically how do we implement these products and solutions, looking at generative AI and how do we implement that into Control Center to really provide a native experience for our clients that they can interact in ways that make sense through meaningful conversation with the application. Sri?
Thank you. Brandy said that her job is actually easy. My job is easier because I got a great partner in AWS. So we started this journey of transforming into cloud about a couple of years ago, and AWS has been an amazing partner in that context. If you look at our value chain within merchant processing, all the way from boarding to core acquiring to settlement to billing, and some value-added services like currency solutions in OpenFX, fraud mitigation, authorization optimization, you name it, we are now starting to kind of build all of that within AWS. In a lot of cases, we are moving loads from our data centers into AWS. In a lot of cases, it's lift and shift. In a lot of cases, it's a complete rewrite, complete transformation. But more importantly, now anything that we are building ground up, new stuff, we go straight into AWS. This is actually a screenshot from my direct usage whenever I log in. These are some of the services that we are using. But I'm going to focus on one specific use case today, the one that Brandy was alluding to. That is user experience in the enterprise merchant space. So enterprise merchants, there is a ton of data that is generated. Some of these merchants actually process hundreds of millions of transactions with us on a daily basis in some cases. So they're looking for insights from this data. They're also looking for information. So the traditional way was they log onto a website, they will get some knowledge base, they'll get some answers from that standpoint. We have fantastic tools in the context of CLX where you can go and mine this data yourself. But oftentimes, some of the answers are extremely complex to kind of get to it. So that usually results in a phone call out to our sales managers, and then they reach out to our engineering teams, and then there is this back and forth that happens, and it takes a while to kind of get to the bottom of it. So how can we bring all of that together with a self-service use? So that's where we started in this journey with AWS in the context of GenAI. We started this out by building a core payments model. This is based on all the payments knowledge base that we have. What's a basic chargeback? What's an auth? What's a credit card transaction? What's a debit card transaction? Take that as a foundation. In a lot of cases, our customers, their core business is not payments. Their core business is whatever they do. Payments is just an afterthought. So we have to start with this foundation. On top of the payments model, then we have to get into the nitty-gritty detail. Within the context of an authorization, what is a decline? What is an auth? What is the network? You take all of that metadata associated with it. Painstakingly, we sat and we kind of wrote down every single metadata associated with it, and then we put the client's data alongside that. So that was the next layer on top of the foundation model. Then we added more elements to it. What did we add? Clients interact with us. In a lot of cases, these enterprise merchants actually use multiple products and services within Fiserv. And there are a lot of touch points with us. They give us a thumbs up in a lot of cases. There are thumbs down in some cases. We kind of take all of those touch points. That goes onto the same model on top of it. And the final one that we are currently working on is actually to go crawl the client's website. These are publicly available websites. Knowledge base, some things around the industry, put that all together and lay that as a foundation. And this is what we've kind of built out with our GenAI capability right now. In the first slide, I went through all the products offerings that AWS has and what we've been using. ProServe has been a phenomenal partner in this context for us. I actually want to give a shout out to the prototyping team within ProServe. They kind of partnered with us. And from thought to finish, we were able to kind of do this, get to an MVP within a few weeks, and get to market within a couple of months' time in that context. Obviously, Bedrock is the foundation in this context, but very important to us. We don't want to do GenAI for the sake of doing GenAI. We wanted to do it in a safe, compliant, clean manner. That's where the foundation with guardrails comes in as well, and we were able to kind of hit the ground running from that standpoint. Specifically, as it relates to the LLM, we looked at a bunch, and we settled on Anthropic in this context. In some cases, we use Haiku. In some cases, we use Sonnet. But it has been working very well. Under the hood, what is happening? It's a little busy slide, but effectively the request from the chatbot in this context, it's going to come into the Control Center Interactive Service. The first thing we do is we take that and send it through the guardrail from a Bedrock perspective. We first want to ensure that this is a question that we can answer. If this is a question about a political point of view, we're not going to be answering that. It goes straight back. These are some important elements that we had to build into this overall use case. Then we take that and we look at the intent. Is the intent more a knowledge-based one? If that is the case, we go out into the top. We use Titan for that. It's a very simple thing. It's table stakes at this point for us, and we're going to give a straightforward answer back. If the intent happens to be knowledge-based, but we also have the data from the client that we can bring that together, then it will be a lot more interesting. That's where we can go down and go into the Anthropic side, and we can either use Haiku or Sonnet in this context, and we issue queries through an API layer. As we started this journey, originally we wanted to look at this as an NL to SQL problem statement, but that kind of worked very well in a lot of cases, but did not work well in some cases because the answers that were coming back were pretty erratic. That's where we kind of shifted to say, instead of going against the data directly, we already have a set of APIs that we curate and have today that our websites interact with, that already provides the necessary guardrails from a security, entitlements, and all of that standpoint. So all the LLM is doing at the baseline is generating this request. We then send it out to the agent. It comes back. We take those two things together, and then we put the answers back into the merchant. So this has been working well. By the way, everything, even the answer that is going back, it goes through guardrails to make sure everything is clean. And finally, how does this look in the context of what I was just explaining? This is a simple use case where the request that came in is just asking about character. So we just went straight to the knowledge base, gave the answer back. And here is a more interesting one. Can't read it fully, but effectively, this is a live example, by the way, that we kind of took it up and we put it up over here. The customer is asking, what are the 3 declines from yesterday and how can I better them? He took that, went to the knowledge base, dug in, figured out the queries that it has to issue through the API layer, brought that back together, and provided recommendations around how that can be improved. What we are working on next is actually bringing in our product data on top of this as well, where in the click of a button, they can go from here and enable themselves for auth optimization in this context to get the approval rate improved. Another thing that we are working on from here on out is from a gift solutions perspective. Value Link is a product. We are now going to be using the same technology. We are working with ProServe on this one as well. We're going to be generating websites for our e-com gift merchants, and we're also going to be using this for generating gift card artwork. So that's a small thing from that standpoint, and thank you.
So thank you, Sri and Brandy, for sharing how Fiserv is using AWS to power CLX and how we're blazing new trails together in delivering business intelligence. Now, our previous 2 customer speakers have shared a vision for how financial institutions are working with AWS to rethink how they build and deliver the services that power their businesses in the global economy. And the broader issue that we've been discussing in this session is how technology transformation can fuel business transformation, because the changes our customers are making at the product level are delivering measurable results for their businesses and for their customers' businesses. So now I'd like to consider how technology transformation is changing our customers' business strategies and allowing them to access markets that may have previously been beyond their reach. Maybe entering those markets was cost prohibitive. Maybe operating in those markets required local resources and infrastructure or compliance requirements, or maybe the product offering just wasn't quite right yet. AWS has made it easier for financial institutions to extend their operations without overextending their technology or their budgets. And just as AWS has helped to de-risk experimentation and empower iteration, we're helping our financial institution customers invest in and de-risk exploration. We're helping them push into new areas by aligning with consumers' needs, market conditions, and regulatory requirements. Standard Chartered Bank is an example of an established financial institution that continues to reinvent itself to serve new customers. The bank is known for the digital banks that it backs to expand its presence, including Trust Bank in Singapore and Mox in Hong Kong. But it is also pursuing creative ways to monetize its knowledge of AWS, in particular its expertise in running core banking on AWS. The bank developed a banking-as-a-service solution called Audex, which uses services like Amazon S3 and Amazon RDS to store transaction and account information to provide financial services capabilities to underbanked consumers and businesses. Audex enables any platform around the world, not just financial institutions, to embed financial services in their operations. Businesses can get up and running in 6 to 9 months rather than years, and as they gain the benefits of a bank without having to obtain a banking license or build banking infrastructure from scratch. So not only is Standard Chartered reaching new customers with Audex, it's helping other businesses do the same. Pretty cool. Visa is also evolving on AWS to meet the changing needs of its customers and to tap into new markets as payments continue to become more digital. Visa is helping its business customers across payments processing capabilities through Visa Cloud Connect, which provides quick and easy access to Visa's global processing network. Visa Cloud Connect extends Visa's reach to customers operating on AWS, which includes cloud-native fintechs as well as established enterprises. In addition, by bringing products like Pismo and Visa Cross-Border Solutions into the AWS marketplace, Visa is enabling better consumer payment experiences. It's all about meeting customers where they are and providing seamless access to Visa solutions, and in partnering with AWS to truly be everywhere that you and I want to be. Now, I'd like to invite Joanne Chadwick, the CIO of Digital Transformation at Santander US, to share how Santander is enabling better consumer experiences as it accesses new markets. And in particular, Joanne is going to share how the bank executed on its ambitious plan to launch their digital bank called Open Bank here in the US in order to expand their presence here.
Okay, hi everyone, and thank you for having me, and what great stories from Rocket and Fiserv. So, as Scott said, I'm here to talk today about how we have been pushing boundaries here at Santander US. Now, 60 days ago, we launched Open Bank by Santander here in the US, which is a brand new cloud-native digital platform, a global digital platform for our high-yield savings product. And I'm glad I was able to get all of those words out without stumbling too much. Okay. So I'm conscious that not everybody in the room will recognize the brand Santander or Open Bank. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background for context. So Santander was actually founded in 1857 in Spain. And a fun fact, Queen Isabella II actually signed the royal decree to incorporate Banco Santander to enable commerce between Spain and Latin America. Now, fast forward 160 years, and we have 168 million customers across Europe and the Americas. And our story in the US started in 2010 when we acquired Sovereign Bank, which is a regional bank based in the Northeast. And in 2013, we rebranded to Santander. We also have an auto loan business in Dallas, and I'm telling you that for a reason. And what about Open Bank? Who are Open Bank? So they are a digital bank wholly owned by Santander, and they're actually the largest digital bank in Europe based on deposits. And the tech magic behind Open Bank is provided by Santander Global Teams and also a company called Open Digital Services, or ODS for short. And what's special about Open Bank is that ODS are able to combine innovation and agility of a fintech with the backing of a global bank. So why Open Bank in the US? Well, it's helping us to realize our strategy to expand nationally across the whole of the US, which means we'll be able to offer really good customer experience, a great rate for our savings product, and also be able to gather low-cost deposits to fund the auto business in Dallas. And what about for the rest of the group? What does it mean? Well, this is a first step in our global transformation. The tech stack that we're building for the US, or we have built for the US, is going to be a common tech stack that we can use across other countries in the group. Okay, so what's important to us and how has AWS helped us to achieve that? First and foremost, the customer. absolutely our priority. But there's a couple of other things that I want to call out to talk about, one of which is partnerships and collaboration. Now, the Open Bank and AWS partnership started back in 2019. We started working with AWS in December 2022. And since then, we've been working together as one team, one vision, whether it be finding creative solutions to challenging problems or making sure our engineers are fully trained on cloud technology. They've been there by our side. And this has helped us to deliver at speed. For example, it took us only 12 months to get our landing zone up and running so that we could start our first pilot. And actually, I picked the photographs on the background of this slide just to show that collaboration. The first one is actually the very first whiteboard session that was held with ODS. And then the second one is from one of our first workshops with AWS. Now, one other thing that's super important is compliance. Our primary goal is to protect our customers and protect their data to keep it safe. Even more importantly, we need to be able to demonstrate to our regulators that we have the controls to keep our customers' data safe. When you mention to your risk partners that you're going to put a whole load of customer data into the cloud, you can kind of see the color draining from their face. And I want to tell you that we had no less than 1,200 regulatory requirements that we had to meet. And AWS were there by our side throughout, making sure that we could achieve that goal. So how did we go about it? Well, the teams, they worked together, and we delivered an entire tech stack from top to bottom, starting off with a fully US-compliant landing zone. We've got brand new channels for web and mobile to provide customer onboarding and servicing for our customers. We have a whole new API-enabled middleware layer, which helps me to integrate really easily with third-party vendors who provide services such as authentication, fraud controls, and payment services. It also means we can integrate to our core banking platform, which we've also modernized. We thought it was a good idea to do everything at the same time. But we've been able to modernize our core banking, take it off of the mainframe, and host it in our own private cloud. And then at the bottom, we have a brand new cloud-native data lake, which supports real-time streaming, and it will be the foundation for our customer analytics going forward. And all of this is underpinned by end-to-end automation, straight-through processing, which means we have a great conversion rate for our onboarding, and it also means that we have minimal handoffs to the back office, which is great for the customer, but it's also great for us because it doesn't cost us so much. So how are we leveraging AWS services to add real business value? Well, let's start with the customer. I need to make sure that my mobile app is available to our customers 24/7. And I don't know who remembers stimulus check day. I certainly do. April the 15th, 2020, at 8 a.m., when the whole of the US decided to log into their online banking to see if they'd got an IRS payment, and our platforms were creaking under the strain of all that traffic. Well, now we have Fargate. I don't think that I need to worry about that too much anymore, because I can scale up and down with the volumes, and I don't need to worry about adding capacity or ordering hardware in a hurry. And from an efficiency perspective, we want our developers and our engineers to be working on really cool stuff, to be adding features and being innovative. And now we have ECS and Fargate. That's kind of come true because we don't need to be coordinating monthly patching or server upgrades. The containerization does that for us. And also, from a deployment perspective, using CloudFormation, we've been able to move from manual deployments, manual configuration that's prone to error, to being able to deploy at the click of a button within minutes. And that's pretty life-changing for our teams. Now back to the 1,200 compliance requirements. From a security perspective, I need to keep my customers' data safe. I need to let the good guys in and keep the bad guys out. And with all of the tools from AWS, we're able to do that. For example, with organizations and IAM, we're able to control exactly who has access to what, to a really, really granular level, down to even the task level, which is great. And then from a vulnerability perspective, using Inspector and Guard Duty, we can scan our software during the development lifecycle, which means we can take care of vulnerabilities before the code even gets to pro. And then once it is in production, we can use Guard Duty to keep scanning over and over to make sure that our software is still sound. And then finally, resilience and availability. Open Bank is always open, and I need to make sure of that. And using the capabilities of the S3 buckets and Aurora and VPC peering, we have the replication to ensure we have high availability and even a multi-region DR solution. So, story so far and what's next. So we delivered our new platform a couple of months ago, and we're doing well. We're exceeding the targets we set ourselves for customer onboarding and deposits gathered. And now we're responding to customer feedback, we're evolving, and during 2025, we're going to be adding products and services so that by the end of 2025, we can be a full digital bank here in the US. And then, in terms of the other countries, that common tech stack, we'll be able to start using that elsewhere, starting in Mexico. And as I reflect on the last year, I think there's two reasons that we've been successful and that we've been able to push the boundaries. First one is obviously the technology, no doubt about that at all. But the second thing is the people and the teams. And that's why I picked these photos, which kind of tell the journey from the first whiteboard day all the way through to our launch. And it's the teams, it's the people, it's the human connection that's made us successful. All these teams from multiple locations coming together against one vision, one team, one Santander, Open Bank by Santander. Watch out for us in 2025. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Joe, for sharing how Santander is using AWS to power Open Bank here in the US and your plans to bring innovation to new markets. We're looking forward to going to those markets with you. So today, we've heard from 3 customers on how they're using tools and capabilities that AWS provides to push the envelope and drive their businesses in new directions. Together, they've given us a view on how the industry is leveraging the advantage of partnering with AWS to move the industry forward in meaningful ways. We've seen how Rocket Companies is breaking down the barriers to home ownership in the US. We've seen how Fiserv is blazing new trails when it comes to providing its customers with insight into their businesses. And we've just heard how Santander is pushing beyond geographical boundaries to grow its business globally. And as we enter the home stretch of this conference, I'd ask all of us to think about what we haven't seen yet, to think about how together we can use the new services and capabilities that we've launched this week to push the envelope for your customers and raise the stakes for the entire industry. We've come a long way in the past 10 years, but I still feel like we're at the beginning of breaking barriers, blazing new trails, and pushing beyond the limits of conventional thinking in the industry. I can't wait to see where we'll go next and how we'll continue to raise the stakes in the industry together. Thank you for joining us today.